I didn't understand the word lonely until the morning she walked into the shop with a dripping umbrella and eyes that looked like they'd already survived the whole week. Funny thing is, I'm the one who'd said it first. I'm lonely, half as a joke, half as something else. She'd only raised an eyebrow at me then, like loneliness was something a 20-something kid couldn't possibly claim. I laughed it off. Now I'm not sure why. It was a slow Wednesday at the repair shop. The kind of day where the clock moves in tiny, stubborn clicks. I was sorting a drawer of mismatched screws when the door chimed. She stepped in as if the air rearranged itself to make space for her. Not dramatic, just deliberate. A slate gray coat, hair pulled back with a clip, a leather folder tucked under her arm. She looked like she belonged in a courthouse or an art gallery, not a place that smelled like engine cleaner and burnt solder. "Is there a reason my laptop sounds like it's about to take off?" she asked, lifting it by the corner with 2 fingers. Her voice was steady, low, the kind that makes you straighten up without realizing. I tried to take it from her gently, but she kept her hand there a second longer than necessary. Not holding on, just not letting go yet. A small hesitation, barely anything, but enough that I noticed. When she finally released it, she brushed her thumb against her palm like she wasn't happy about touching anything in the shop. Or maybe she was brushing something off her mind. Hard to tell. "It's probably just the fan," I said. "They get clogged with dust." "That's comforting," she murmured, lips twitching before settling into a faint, almost smile. I started opening the case at the counter while she stood a step away, looking around the shop like she was trying to understand why anyone would willingly work here. The fluorescent lights hummed. A metal shelf rattled when a truck passed outside. But the only sound I kept noticing was her quiet breathing. Too soft, too controlled. "You work here alone?" she asked. Most people ask out of politeness. She asked like she already suspected the answer. "Yeah," I said. "Just me today." A nod. The kind people give when something confirms a private theory. She didn't talk much after that, just watched my hands while I cleaned out the fan. Her gaze wasn't intense, more like she was studying movement. Not me, exactly. The space between things. I kept pretending to be absorbed in the screws, but my fingers betrayed me. They fumbled once, slipped off the screwdriver. A tiny clatter. She looked up sharply. "You okay?" she asked. For some reason the way she asked made my throat tighten. Not in a dramatic way, just strange, like no one had checked on me in a while. "Yeah, just dusty," I said, forcing a laugh. And then it happened, the kind of moment you can't choreograph. She reached out, not touching me, but close enough that I felt the air shift. Her hand hovered near mine, like she intended to help, but reconsidered halfway. A small act. A non-act, really, but it sent a pulse through my chest. "Let me know if you need another set of hands," she said softly, withdrawing her hand like it had betrayed her. I finished the repair in record time just to have something to do with myself. When I handed the laptop back, our fingers didn't touch, but they could have. 1 inch. Maybe less. She thanked me with a quiet sincerity that didn't match the rushed world outside. And then she left, the door chiming behind her, her umbrella tapping softly against her boot. I stood there long after she was gone, staring at the counter like it might offer answers. Because the truth is, I'm still trying to figure out why that almost touch felt louder than anything else in the room. The second time she came in, she didn't look like the woman with the polished confidence and clipped sentences. She looked tired, not sloppy. Nothing about her ever slipped that far, but softer around the edges. Her hair was down this time, a little uneven from the wind, and she carried her laptop under her arm like it weighed more than it should. "I think it's doing the thing again," she said, pushing the door with her shoulder instead of her hand. It swung shut behind her with a dull thud. I was reorganizing a shelf and nearly dropped an entire box of cables when I turned. She didn't seem to notice. She was already looking at the counter like she needed something to hold herself steady. "You can leave it," I said, stepping closer. "I'll check it." For a second, she didn't move. Her fingers tightened around the laptop, not protectively, but like she needed the anchor. Then she slowly set it down. Up close, she looked worn. Subtle things. The faint shadow under her left eye. The way the corner of her mouth didn't quite lift when she tried to smile. And her hands, steady, long fingers, but tense, like she'd been clenching them earlier. "Rough day?" I asked, immediately regretting the question. She gave a soft, humorless laugh. Something like that. Her voice had a crack she tried to hide with a breath. Not a break, just thin in the middle. She caught herself, straightened, tucked a stray strand of hair behind her ear. Guard going back up. I started working on the laptop, pretending not to be aware of the silence settling between us. She paced slowly around the shop, fingertips drifting along the shelves. Not touching anything. Just hovering above the surfaces like she needed to keep her hands busy without leaving a mark. "You always keep it this organized?" she asked. Her tone was light, but her eyes weren't. Distracted. Somewhere else entirely. "I try. Gives me something to do." She nodded, though the answer didn't really reach her. She leaned against the counter then, slowly, like she was giving in to gravity instead of choosing the spot. When I glanced up, her gaze wasn't on the laptop. She was looking at me. Not directly. More like she was studying the side of my face, the space near my hands. Then, as if realizing it, she turned her eyes away too fast. I didn't call attention to it. Didn't breathe for a second, either. "You okay?" I asked quietly, mirroring the same question she'd asked me the first time. She pressed her lips together. A long pause. Then another. "I didn't sleep much," she finally said. "Work, life, everything felt loud last night." She didn't owe me that explanation. I knew it the moment she exhaled, the way her shoulders lifted and dropped like she'd revealed more than she planned. Something inside me tightened. Not attraction, not yet, something gentler. A pull. The kind you feel when someone tries hard to hold themselves together. I fixed the issue faster than last time. She was watching again, but differently. Less analyzing, more present. When I handed the laptop back, her fingers brushed mine. A small touch. Barely anything. But she didn't pull away immediately. She looked up at me then. Eyes softer, but unreadable. "Thank you," she said. "Not for the repair. Something else." She held my gaze a second longer than she should have. And even after she left, even after the door chimed and the sound faded, I could still feel the warmth of that almost intentional touch lingering on my skin. She came in late this time, later than anyone ever should for a repair shop. The street outside was glossy with rain, the kind that made the neon sign in the window flicker like it couldn't decide whether to work or give up. I was already halfway through locking the side door when I saw her standing just inside the doorway, coat damp, hair darker from the weather. "I know you're closing," she said, breath uneven. "I just didn't want to go home yet." There are sentences that sit in the air longer than they should. That one stayed between us like a fragile object neither of us knew how to hold. "You can stay," I said quietly. "I'm not in a hurry." She exhaled, not relief, not exactly. More like a slow surrender. Then she stepped further inside. Only a few feet, but it felt closer than before. I turned the sign around, closed, but didn't lock the door. She noticed. Her eyes flicked to the bolt, then to me. "I'm not trapped," she murmured. A strange sentence. Soft. Half a joke, half a truth she wasn't explaining. The rain beat against the windows in an uneven rhythm. She sat on the stool near the counter, brushing damp strands of hair back behind her ear with small, distracted motions. "You look—" I started, then swallowed the rest. Tired felt too blunt. Beautiful felt inappropriate. Different felt vague. She saved me. Like I've had a long night. Something like that. A faint smile ghosted across her face. Not forced, just worn. She glanced around the shop. "This place is quieter at night." "It's quieter when you're here," I said before thinking. Her eyes lifted to mine. Still, studying. Not reacting, but not ignoring it either. Something caught in her throat. A breath, or a word she decided not to say. "I used to like nights," she said. "Now they're long." She hesitated, thumb brushing over the edge of the stool's seat. "I don't usually talk like this." "You don't have to explain." "I know," she whispered. "But I'm explaining anyway." Another silence. Not uncomfortable, just thick. Then her phone buzzed. She flinched. Not dramatically, just a small, instinctive recoil. A name flashed across the screen. I didn't read it fully, but I caught enough to know it wasn't someone she wanted to hear from. Her jaw tightened. She let it ring. When it buzzed again, she silenced it with a sharp tap, like punctuating a thought she didn't want to finish. I should go, she said softly, but didn't stand. Thunder rumbled in the distance. Another hesitation. Her fingers tapped the counter, restless. Then she lowered her voice. Can I tell you something? Just don't make anything of it. I nodded. I didn't come here for the laptop tonight, she said. I just didn't want to be alone. Not after that call. Her words hit me in the chest with a quiet force. Not romantic, something lonelier, more raw. I get that, I said. She looked at me. Really looked. Eyes searching like she was checking whether I meant it. Then she leaned slightly toward me. Not enough to cross a line, but enough that I felt her warmth, the nearness of her breath, the subtle scent of rain on her coat. For a second, I thought she might tell me the whole story. The reason for the call, the reason for the tension in her shoulders, the reason she kept ending up here at night. But instead she whispered, almost too soft to hear, "Don't be kind to me right now." Not a warning, not a plea, something in between. I swallowed, pulse tight. I wasn't going to. I know, she said, cutting me off gently. Her hand moved, just an inch, brushing the counter near mine. Close enough that if either of us shifted even slightly, our fingers would touch. She didn't move closer. I didn't either. The air between our hands felt electric and impossibly fragile. And then, right as her fingers curled like she might reach that last inch, her phone buzzed again. She pulled her hand back. The moment broke, but the echo of it stayed, pulsing in the space she'd almost crossed. The next time she came, she didn't bring the laptop. She didn't bring anything, actually. No bag, no coat, no excuse. She just stood in the doorway of the shop for a long moment, as if deciding whether she was allowed to step inside. The late afternoon light behind her made her look almost unreal, but her expression was painfully human. "Are you busy?" she asked. I wasn't. I said nothing anyway, because the question wasn't about the shop. She stepped in. The door clicked shut behind her, sealing the quiet. For once, she didn't wander the shelves or pretend she was here for some repair. She walked straight to the counter and rested both hands on its edge, her head bowed slightly, eyes on a tiny scratch in the wood. "You're not supposed to be this easy to talk to," she said, almost whispering. My mouth went dry. "I'm not trying to be." "I know you're not," she said. Then she looked up. Her eyes held something raw. Not tears, not fear. Something that wasn't meant to be seen by anyone. Least of all me. She exhaled like it cost her something. "We can't keep doing this." There it was. Not the confession I'd imagined. Not even a clear accusation. Just that line. Heavy, shapeless, true. I leaned against the counter to steady myself. "Doing what?" "You know," she said, but her voice wavered. "This, wandering toward each other and pretending we're not." The silence that followed wasn't empty. It was packed with unsaid things, with mistakes that hadn't happened yet, with whatever lived in the inch that had hovered between our hands last time. I swallowed. "I didn't mean for anything to be. I'm not blaming you." Her interruption was soft but firm. She stared straight at me. No shield this time. "I don't understand what I'm doing," she said. "That's the problem." Her fingers tapped once on the counter, a small tremor she couldn't hide. "So tell me," she added quietly, "what are we doing?" Her question hit deeper than it should have. Maybe because I didn't have an answer that wouldn't break something. "I don't know," I said, "but I don't think I want to stop." She inhaled sharply, the kind of breath someone takes when the truth lands too close. Her jaw clenched. Not anger, restraint. "This isn't harmless," she whispered. "It doesn't feel harmless," I admitted. That made her look away. She pressed a hand to her forehead, thumb rubbing slowly at her temple. A small, tired gesture. Then she laughed, a thin, shaky sound. "I'm old enough to know better," she murmured. "And I'm young enough to pretend I don't," I said quietly. Her breath caught. She froze, hands still against her forehead, eyes searching mine like she wanted me to take the words back. But I didn't. The silence grew heavy again, but not the same as before. This one had consequences in it. She stepped back, just an inch, as if the space itself had become dangerous. "You should stop looking at me like that," she said. "I'm not looking at you any particular way." "You are," she whispered. "A beat. And it scares me." For a moment, Neither of us moved. The world outside could have disappeared, and I might not have noticed. Then she lifted her hand, slowly, as if to reach for me, or stop me, or steady herself. But she didn't touch me. Her fingers hovered in the space between us, trembling slightly. And with her voice barely holding together, she said, "Don't make me want something I'm not allowed to have." She didn't come back for 3 days. Long enough for me to rehearse 100 different versions of what I'd say if she did. Long enough for the shop to feel too quiet, like it was waiting with me. When she finally walked in, she looked composed. Almost too composed. Her hair was neatly tied, her clothes pressed, her expression guarded the way it had been the first day we met. But it felt like armor now, not habit. "I shouldn't be here," she said before the door even closed. But she stepped inside anyway. I didn't move from where I stood behind the counter. Something in her posture, stiff shoulders, careful breathing, warned me not to get too close, not even with words. She set her phone on the counter face down. Deliberate. Final. "I got a voicemail," she said, staring at the phone like it was radioactive. "Yesterday." I opened my mouth, but she cut me off with a small shake of her head. "You don't have to say anything. I just need to tell someone. And I don't know why you're the person I'm choosing." My heart tightened. She pressed her fingertips into the edge of the counter, grounding herself. "When I left my husband," she said quietly, "it wasn't because of fighting or betrayal. It was silence. We lived next to each other, not with each other." She paused, swallowed. Her eyes drifted to the floor, as if the memory lived somewhere down by her shoes. "And yesterday he called," she continued. "I thought he wanted something practical, documents, bills, whatever. But he didn't." Her voice thinned. "He said he missed the sound of me laughing." I didn't breathe. She gave a soft, disbelieving exhale. I didn't even remember the last time I laughed with him. I couldn't picture it. "Isn't that strange?" She finally met my eyes. And there it was, the crack in her armor. Small but deep. "He left the message at midnight," she said. His voice, it sounded lonely. And the worst part? I couldn't tell if I was sad for him or sad for me. Silence filled the shop again. Not heavy, fragile. I stepped closer, slowly, as if approaching a wounded animal. But I didn't touch her. I didn't even let my hand hover. I just stood near enough that she could feel I was there if she wanted the space, or didn't. She looked at me like she was studying the outline of my presence, the way I stayed, the way I didn't push, the way I didn't ask for anything. Then she said something so unexpected it landed in the center of my chest. "You remind me of someone." Her voice softened, almost nostalgic. "Who?" I asked. She hesitated. Her gaze drifted to the window, where the weak afternoon light made her look both older and impossibly young. "Myself," she whispered. I blinked, trying to understand. "When I was your age," she said, "I used to care about things the way you do. Quietly but fiercely. I used to look at the world like it still mattered." Her throat tightened, but she kept going. "And when you look at me, I see that girl again. Just for a second." My pulse kicked in my ears. She reached for her phone, but didn't pick it up. Her hand rested over it, trembling slightly. "And I think that's why I'm scared," she said. "Because you see parts of me I forgot existed." The words pierced deeper than any confession could have. She took a slow breath, steadying, centering, then looked at me with an expression I couldn't decode but felt everywhere. "Don't take this the wrong way," she murmured, "but I don't know what to do with the version of myself you make me remember." We stood there, not touching, not moving. Her hand hovered just an inch above mine on the counter, not reaching, just trembling in the space between us. And then, in the softest voice I'd ever heard from her, she said, "I'm terrified that you're the first person to see me in years." She showed up after closing again, not storm-soaked this time, not shaken, not guarded. Just quiet, the kind of quiet that comes after someone has finally stopped fighting with themselves. I didn't turn on the overhead lights. The soft glow from the desk lamp cast a warm circle across the counter, and she stood just outside it, as if unsure whether she was allowed to step into the light. "I've been thinking," she said. Not an apology, not an explanation, just that. I nodded, not moving, letting her take the space she needed. She came closer, slow and deliberate. until the light brushed her cheekbones and made the tiny lines around her eyes visible. Lines that softened instead of hardened. "When I got that voicemail," she said, "I thought it was a sign I should go back to who I used to be. Or at least pretend to." Her hand gripped the edge of the counter, knuckles pale. But her voice was steady, and then I realized something uncomfortable. A small breath. "When I'm with you, I don't feel the need to pretend." The words settled between us. Not heavy, not dangerous, just true in a way that made my chest feel too small. I stepped closer, not touching her, just close enough for her to feel the shift in the air. She didn't move away. "You're not doing anything wrong," I said softly. "I know." A faint smile flickered. "That's what scares me. I'm doing something honest, and I'm not used to that." Her eyes lifted to mine, steady, open, unguarded for the first time. "I don't want to ruin your life," she whispered. "You're not," I said. My voice came out hushed, raw. "If anything, you've made it feel like it finally started." She let out a shaky laugh, covering her mouth briefly. Not a laugh of joy, a laugh of recognition. Of two people naming something neither meant to name. There was no rush, no heat, no sudden crossing of lines. Just a slow collapse of distance, emotional before physical. She sank onto the stool beside the counter. I pulled another stool over and sat across from her. We didn't look away. For a long moment, neither of us spoke. Her hands rested in her lap, fingers loosely tangled, as if she'd stopped holding herself together by force. Mine sat on the counter, open, waiting but not asking. Eventually, her gaze drifted to my hand. Not with longing, with recognition. A quiet decision forming in the soft tension around her eyes. She reached out. Not boldly, not fully, just enough. Her fingertips brushed the back of my hand, a whisper-light touch, and then settled there, warm, steady. No tremble this time. No hesitation. "I don't know where this goes," she said. "I don't need to know," I murmured. "Not tonight." She nodded. The smallest nod, but real. We sat like that, her hand resting on mine, my thumb gently brushing the side of her finger, in the dim golden light of the nearly empty shop. Nothing dramatic. No declarations, no promises, no future carved into words. Just two people who finally stopped lying to themselves. She exhaled slowly, the kind of breath that releases years, not minutes. And in a voice barely louder than the hum of the lamp, she said the line that ended whatever version of us existed before this moment. "I don't feel alone when I'm here." I'm telling this part from here, from the version of myself that has already lived it, survived it, and softened because of it. Funny how the smallest moments end up becoming the ones that echo the longest. When I look back now, I don't remember the tension, or the silence that felt too loud, or even the fear of losing something before it ever fully formed. What I remember is the shift afterward, not the dramatic kind, but the kind that quietly rewires you. After that night, nothing between them was forced anymore. They didn't rush into anything, didn't pretend they were something they weren't. But there was a gentleness in the way they moved around each other, almost like they were learning the language of breathing again. Conversations felt easier. The pauses weren't heavy. Even the way she said his name had changed, it wasn't guarded anymore. He noticed, of course. He always noticed the small things. And I think that's what stayed with me the most. How their story wasn't built on grand gestures, but on the kind of noticing that makes you feel held without ever being touched. She learned something too. She learned that it's possible for someone to walk into your life without trying to fix you, rescue you, or fill the empty places, and still end up changing everything. She had spent so long believing love only arrived loudly, dramatically, demanding to be heard. This was different. This was the kind of love that curled up next to her fear and whispered, "It's okay. Take your time." And him, he softened. Not in a way that took anything from him, but in a way that made space for her. He'd always been someone who carried the weight of being the steady one, the person others leaned on. But with her, he learned that letting someone lean on you doesn't mean you have to stand perfectly still. You can move. You can be unsure. You can want something without knowing what it means yet. And that wanting alone is enough. It wasn't a perfect ending, because real stories rarely have those. But it was honest and quiet And somehow that quiet felt more final, more complete than any dramatic declaration could have been. Sometimes the afterglow of a moment comes not from what happened, but from what stopped hurting afterward. They both walked away from that night different, not drastically, not visibly, but unmistakably, like two people who had finally admitted to themselves that they were allowed to feel something real again, allowed to hope, allowed to choose each other slowly. When I think about their story now, I realize it wasn't about falling in love. It was about learning to stay with themselves, with each other, with the possibility of something gentle. And maybe that's what love really is. The decision to stay when the world has given you 100 reasons not to. If this story made you feel something, let me know in the comments. Would you want more stories like this?